hello. So happy to see all of you. Thank you for joining us. I realize there's been a lot of information taken in today. To keep this session even more entertaining, every time one of us says the word marketplace, we're going to take a shot of vodka. That's not water. No, I'm kidding. That's a terrible idea. I've never seen the inside of a German hospital. I don't really want to do that today. But anyway, so just to get started and to kind of review, I'll just reintroduce ourselves very quickly if we could move on. Of course, I'm Sean Drummy, and this is Kai, who has so much insight. I had the pleasure of speaking with him earlier. We're going to talk about marketplaces as it relates to his industry and lots of the insights that he's found. But before we get into some of those questions, I'd just like to ask you, Kai, if you could tell us a bit more about you and the company as well.
Yeah. Welcome also from my side, and thanks for having me here. So my name is Kai. I'm head of digital business at Grimme. And for those of you who don't know Grimme, which is the majority, I assume, we are a producer of agricultural machinery for potatoes, sugar beet, and vegetables. We are based in Lower Saxony in northern Germany. We've been founded 160 years ago, so we also know tradition, we also know legacy in IT and so on. We employ about 3,000 employees worldwide in 27 different locations, so internationalization is also a big topic for us. And overall, to give you an idea, worldwide we are having a revenue of about 720 million euros.
Awesome. So just to kind of give a very brief overview of what you can expect in terms of key takeaways. Firstly, we're going to talk about kind of key trends and the dynamics within the marketplace model, especially as it relates to B2B. We'll learn about a lot of the challenges that are typically faced with that. And then finally, we'll conclude with some of the future trends that we see coming up and just kind of have a conversation about marketplace, and we encourage any questions that arise as well. Okay, so starting it off, kind of setting the stage. What were some of the top drivers that Grimme had when you made the decision to go after the marketplace model?
Good question. So maybe first of all to give you a bit more overview about Grimme, because I think it's important to understand a few topics in the further discussion. So our customers have very individual and special demand, and so our products very special and very individual. So there's no product like the other. I think that's also something that is pretty common in B2B. So the drivers for us to create a marketplace was primarily to reach new customers, new customer segments, also new areas in the world where we are not that present with our offline sales force. So these were definitely two drivers. And we wanted to achieve it by a marketplace that provides a big selection. So through our marketplace, we are advertising our used machines and the used machines of our dealers. And we wanted to provide a big selection for our customers and basically connect the very individual offers from our worldwide dealer network with the special worldwide demand of our customers.
Right, interesting. So speaking of talking a little bit more about your company, I'm sure with these large, high-ticket price industrial items, both spare parts and buying used machinery as well would also be, the secondary market would be very large because they're quite expensive. They need to last a long time. Grimme took the decision to only start with the used machinery and not use the marketplace model for spare parts. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of drove that decision?
Yeah. So the spare parts, that's where we actually use Spryker for. We decided not to follow a marketplace approach. So at the end, the question is, what is the benefit of having a marketplace? And with the used equipment, I said, like, having a bigger selection by adding more merchants to your marketplace was one of the key drivers. For spare parts, it's a bit different. Like, the selection doesn't really grow if you add more merchants. Like, the number of spare parts will still be the same. So, I mean, of course, there would still be some benefits, like, for example, stock availability. Maybe your dealer nearby doesn't have the spare part on stock, but you need it quite urgently. Maybe the dealer in the next city will have it. That would be an advantage. Also price comparison maybe, because you can maybe select between dealers. On the other hand, that would create kind of an artificial price competition between the dealers that we also didn't really want. So at the end, when it's about spare parts, in our case, and I think in the engineering industry it's quite common, the biggest challenge for a customer is to identify the right part, the part that is really like suitable for the machine, for the product that I have. And that challenge is simply one that a marketplace can't solve any better than a normal shop.
Right, makes a lot of sense. Interesting. Okay, so kind of switching tracks a little bit, talk a little bit more about challenges. I think it's a commonly made observation that the B2C side of things typically pushes the envelope more and invests more in the user experience, and then B2B kind of waits to see what happens and then picks out the best practices of that. Where do you believe that B2B in marketplace or otherwise would best benefit from learning from what you see in the cutting edge of B2C, and what are some of the challenges that you might have in adopting it?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference is the convenience. So B2C shops and marketplaces, they focus a lot on convenience because that's what it's all about. When you want to be successful, you need to have a very convenient shop or shopping experience, like easily findable products, good experience while checkout. We heard about payment yesterday. These are very important factors in B2C, and I think that a lot of B2B marketplaces and shops, they don't pay enough attention on that, probably because when they design and concept their solution, they are often not customer-centric enough. A lot of discussions, it's in our company the same as in a lot of other companies, I assume. They are often driven by internal discussions, and people are thinking, or colleagues are thinking about how can I make my life easier if the order comes in through that way, or the customer provides the phone number or whatnot, discussions like that. And I think that's something that B2C shops really recognized, that you have to be customer-centric. And the third one is fulfillment. I think that's also definitely one thing that in B2B shops and marketplaces is something to be improved.
Okay, so staying with the kind of challenge and complexity theme, what are something that people consistently underestimate in terms of being complex or difficult about either rolling out or maintaining a marketplace?
Probably depends from use case to use case. For us, it's definitely the management of merchants. And that's also then at the end was the reason why we didn't follow the marketplace approach for the spare parts. So in our case, just for Germany, we would talk about roughly 200 dealers or merchants that we would have to bring on our marketplace. They usually know e-commerce experts, so they need a lot of training. You probably need to convince them. You need to explain them the advantages of the platform. You also want to make sure that they fulfill your value proposition, because with your solution, it's your brand on there, and there comes a certain value proposition, be it quality of information, transparency, service, fulfillment, and so on. And you really rely on your merchants to fulfill that value proposition, and so you need to really manage them closely. And I mean, the big marketplaces like Amazon, for them it's, I wouldn't say easy, it was a long way, but they have such a high market power, so they can just force their merchants to follow this value proposition. So they basically dictate how they have to behave, how fast they have to deliver, return options, and so on. They just use their market power, and the merchants will follow, or they will be kicked off. And at least we, and I think a lot of other B2B companies as well, they don't have that power. They can't force their dealers in that way. And that's definitely, in my opinion, the biggest challenge when it comes to marketplaces.
Yeah, I fully agree. In this paradigm of adding this third party of a merchant, you think would be quite straightforward because you're going from a buyer and seller to adding a third. How hard could it be? Merchants, they aren't your customers, but similarly, you have to keep them happy, right? Like they're not part of your company, but similarly, you want them to deliver on your brand promise. So I think in the companies that I've spoken with as well, fully agree that it's very common. And then kind of just in general about marketplaces, what for you is the biggest risk in being successful in a marketplace?
It's pretty much related to the challenges that the marketplace has. So it's first of all quite or relatively complex to build up a marketplace from a technical perspective. So you need to spend a lot of time and money in setting something up. And then the risk is, because the merchant management or the dealer management is so complicated, the risk is maybe you can't convince them to to put their products on the marketplace, or they are not fulfilling your value proposition. So at the end, the marketplace is not that attractive to customers, and hence not successful. So you burned a lot of money and effort, and at the end, you don't have the necessary reach and traffic on your marketplace. I think that's the biggest risk. So turning around the thing a little bit,
Sure.
I'm pretty much focused on the agricultural industry. I talk a lot with companies in that industry. You see a lot of other industries as well. What other industries do you think are not using the full potential of marketplaces yet?
Yeah, the list I think is quite long. I have a few examples, one that's pretty close and one that's maybe a little bit further away. Construction and general building materials. I think that these industries have a long history of being slow to adopt, and then when they do, it's very rapid. And it's almost like, how are we doing it differently before? When you look at large commercial construction projects, many stakeholders to manage, lots of supply chain issues, labor coming in from many different companies and so on and so forth. And it seems to be managed in a very sort of analog, antiquated way, even for large multi-million euro projects, and I think that using the power of decentralization and marketplaces to make these projects more efficient, there might be some resistance perhaps in the industry, but I think it's definitely ripe there. Another one I would highlight is the out-of-home industry, which is kind of a fancy term for saying physical advertising, like on billboards, the sides of buses, or trash cans, or whatever that you see. An industry I have a little experience with, the buying and the selling of these ads is still quite antiquated. It's kind of almost like the spreadsheet sort of model that many people joke about. That's still quite common there, and setting up marketplaces, because out-of-home advertising is still super valuable. It's not going away.
True.
Hopefully we'll all still be leaving our homes a lot in the future. So the marketplace, I think the model, it would be very beneficial there.
Okay, got it. So these were a little bit like the negative industries maybe. On the positive side, is there any industry or any specific company that surprised you with an innovative marketplace approach? Any specific example that you can share?
I really enjoy kind of researching innovative use cases for marketplaces because there's just so much disruption happening, and the two that come to mind are personal data and dirt. And I really literally mean dirt. I encountered a company that created a marketplace where, if you think about these large commercial construction projects, if you have excavated a huge amount of earth in order to build a structure, you got to get rid of that earth. And it's not worth anything to you, but if you're trying to, for instance, flatten a large hill to build a large commercial property, you need fill. So all of a sudden, there's an exchange where one person's trash is another person's treasure. How do you connect those two parties together? We've seen, at least in the United States, a few companies with construction experience handling the market making and the fulfillment for it, and it's been really interesting. I mean, it's not very sexy to sell dirt, but there is a need for it anyway. The other interesting one that I've seen coming up is personal data. And the democratization of data, I think, is going to come very, very soon, and there'll be a reckoning, and how you want your data to be used and by whom. The marketplace model is super well suited for that, and I'm very interested to see how companies might innovate there as well.
Interesting.
All right, my turn to go back again. Talking about industry insights, talking about digital transformation, speaking of things like dirt being digitally transformed. How do you balance integrating cutting-edge tech that you need in order to stay ahead against making sure that you stay user-friendly and organization-friendly in your marketplace?
Not easy to answer, because I think that's the one main challenge and the main key to be successful. I mean, of course, it's challenging to always use the latest tech and so on. It's not easy, but it's not the whole story. So, for example, we internally, and I think a lot of you always look at companies like Tesla and be like, how can they be so successful with all their digital channels and tools that they have? I mean, you can buy a Tesla almost completely online. You can book a service completely with your app. You can almost control everything in your car with the app. And you take a look at such a company and be like, okay, why can't we adapt that? What do we do wrong? And I think that's not really a fair comparison, because there are big differences between companies like Tesla and most of the B2B companies. So customer base is completely different. Like Tesla customers, they usually love tech. That's why you own a Tesla, or like why most of the people own a Tesla. Our customers are, not all of them, but a lot of them are really like hands-on, and they like dirt in their fingers and so on. So sometimes, yes, they have a smartphone, but they are not like have a super high digital affinity. Also, the products are completely different. Our products are not at all standardized. What is different to Tesla, for example. And I talked about our sales network in the beginning, which also brings a lot of political discussions when it comes to e-commerce. So D2C is quite challenging when you have an existing sales network. So you just have to accept that there's a difference, and you need to use the right tech in the right speed. So at the end, it sounds easy, but what you need to do is you need to use the technology that is there to create tools that your customers love and also that your organization accepts. And if that's the case, it doesn't really matter what's the technology underneath.
Makes perfect sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. Turning it around again, for us as a company, it's sometimes hard because we are acting in quite a niche. So it's different for us to set targets when it comes to e-commerce. Like what is a good share of online revenue, or what is a target turnover that we want to achieve? There's just no figures in the internet that you can like use. So what would you say when your flywheel of merchants and customers is up and running? Like where is that turning point where the marketplace sustains itself?
Yeah, I definitely love the word flywheel that you use to describe it, because I think it's a great like physical analogy for it. And one of the best parts of my job is getting to talk to customers like you about real practitioners about how to run it. I think that going along with the flywheel analogy, the concept of friction is really important. The more friction that you remove from all the parties involved, you create this virtuous cycle. So for instance, talking about the challenges with merchants, when you're able to get merchants to have a nice life in your platform, and they see that they're making money and the promise that you have of coming and listing your goods is being fulfilled, they want to list more products. Their competitors sit up and they want to also contribute, which in turn means there's more competition, more products, which means you're producing more value for your customers. And more customers, of course, begets more merchants. Mm-hmm. The virtuous cycle is established. And the more friction that you remove in getting both of them on board, eventually, what we've seen with highly successful marketplaces is it just kind of happens on its own. It's not a tough fight for both sides of the equation to come in. And it's totally unfair. I get to make my point with the benefit of a slide as well. It's still very difficult to remove this friction, right? 81%, as it says there, of the people trying to create marketplaces say it took longer than they expected. And 61% are saying that resolving even internal gaps for skills or alignment is more difficult than you'd think, because it's a different way of doing business, especially if you're traditionally just standard B2B, right? But the results, when it actually works, are phenomenal. And you can see the statistics below about average order value or boost in revenue when you use the marketplace to complement your existing products.
Got it.
So switching tracks a little bit here about driving digital innovation, right? Digital farming solutions, right? So like how does Grima use their digital platform to increase the efficiency of farmers? Beyond just the harvesting and the thing that the machine does, how can you leverage technology to take that even further?
So basically with MyGrima, we try to like provide one platform that covers the whole customer journey, basically. And when we talk about efficiency, I would make a differentiation between the actual season where our products are used. So that's a bit different to a lot of other products. Our machines are used maybe 8 to 12 weeks a year during the planting season, harvest season, whatever. During that time, we are offering monitoring solutions. So our machines are communicating with the internet, sending data. So we give access to these data to the customer to make analysis, improve the processes, keep an overview about the progress, and so on. So that's the one part. And then we have the remaining 10 months of the year where it's about making maintenance for the machine, preparing them for the next season, getting spare parts, Maybe you need to replace a certain machine, so you're looking for new technology. So long story short, we basically try to cover all the touch points that the customers have with us as a company through the digital platform.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's very exciting to see where those sorts of Internet of Things and the telemetry that you automatically get comes out. I can't wait for a harvester to order its own spare parts. Couple that with AI, and God only knows what it's going to be ordering over the night, right? So that should be interesting. Okay, closing thoughts. Please, give us your future outlook. Where do you think marketplaces are headed? How are you going to take advantage of the next wave of technology?
Yes, so kind of you just answered that already. Of course, that's the big vision, right? We have AI, and then machines are sending data, and we know exactly, based on previous data, how long a certain spare part lasts, and then based on weather conditions and whatnot, we make suggestions, or maybe the harvester orders the parts on his own. That's the vision, but to be honest, we are also pretty far away from that. It's not more than a vision. But there are also pretty cool AI use cases that are really not that far away. I'm thinking about customer service chatbots, for example, where you can, when you have a problem, you can just type it in and you will get a reply based on previous problems that customers have. We had the discussion yesterday at Herd about image recognition. That's a very interesting use case for us. Take a photo of your spare part, it's being identified, and you can put it in your shopping basket right away. So these are very interesting AI use cases that are not too far away, I guess. On the other hand, we also have to do a lot of homework. AI is cool, but if the underlying data are not good, it's also really hard to implement it. So there's still a lot of processes to be digitalized, a lot of data to be properly stored so that we can make them available for LLMs. So a lot of groundwork left, and also I mentioned that earlier. We shouldn't forget about the speed that our customers and our organization is willing to go. So if we go faster than our customers are willing to become digital, we have cool tech maybe that we are excited about, but they are not providing value to the company.
Nobody uses it.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much. This was great. Really appreciate your time and all the insights that you've provided. Please give a hand for Kai. He was wonderful.
Thank you.
To very briefly review the key takeaways, Grandma used their marketplace approach to go to new market segments and reach customers in new ways. You can see the flywheel effect taking place when you see that acquisition costs for your customers and merchants go down, the concept that I use of friction. And finally, the amount of digital adoption you can expect is going to vary from customer to customer, so you need to make sure that you're flexible and don't rush it if you don't need to. And once again, I'm Sean, this is Kai, and we're not as smart as the Swiss gentleman who just presented because we did not put QR codes up for our LinkedIn profile, but reach out to us if you'd like to connect, and thanks again. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.